John Gottman and Julie Gottman, his wife, have done a great deal of work about communication styles. And they are so skilled at this that they're able to discern with a frightening degree of accuracy within a very short period of time whether a couple is going to get divorced or not. And so they rely upon what's called the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And so these are communication styles that spell disaster in any relationship, particularly a marriage. So the first horseman is criticism. And this is where, you're constant, not just once in a while being helpfully critical, but you're not conveying things in a positive way. You're sort of tearing down the character of the other individual. The second horseman is contempt. Contempt is the biggest destroyer of relationships. So this goes beyond criticism to, it shows up in cynicism, sarcasm, and just extreme dislike.
And it's a superiority.
It is a superiority. I'm better, I know better than you.
You chose that, really?
Yeah. And so it's like a sneering, eye-rolling, putting down sort of thing. So it's sort of like criticism on steroids. The next horseman is defensiveness. So defensiveness is terrible for relationships. And in its worst form, it can look like gaslighting. So defensiveness is where you're not taking responsibility, and also it can turn into shaming of the other person in order to detract attention away from maybe something that the individual has done wrong and they know it. So it's a tactic. And then the fourth horseman is stonewalling. So stonewalling results from being flooded emotionally, and the person just shuts down. So what you want to do if you're experiencing this in a relationship, according to the Gottmans, is take a 20-minute timeout. I mean, they've scientifically researched this and have concluded 20 minutes is the length of time that most humans need to regroup and sort of restore themselves. And not just 20 minutes sitting in a chair, but walking in nature, doing some exercise, like something to clear the air. So I think that John and Julie Gottman are really on to something, because certainly that's been my experience in working with couples, that by the time they end up in my office, often all four of the four horsemen are at work in their relationship, and they have not, and sometimes it's been happening for decades, and it's just past the point of repair.
Yeah. I love that John and Julie Gottman also have this advice to, first of all, like if somebody does take their 20 minutes, and they're advised to come back and say, I'm going to need more time. And they can go back. It's not like you have to do it in 20 minutes. It's like you can come back out. So some people who have like a lot of old trauma that they're activated and they're not ready to be done in 20 minutes. They might have to come back and say, I am going to go back for 20 more minutes. And the other thing they said that was great was, can you put, if you need to go to bed with this unresolved, agree to touch your feet. And I thought that was cute to like remember, like, I like you, or, because sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just, I remember with my husband, just sometimes when I was married, I would hug him and I'd be like, oh, I should be doing this more. I forgot about this. Sometimes I think I might still be married if we hugged more. Like sometimes you just forget to touch, right?
Especially when you're mad.
When you're mad, when I'm mad. Yeah. When he's mad. Yeah.
There's no touching, there's no sex. That creates a whole separate set of other issues. Then, you've got the snowball effect. But I think it does. I think John and Julie Gottman are right. Those four horsemen is where, it starts.
Yeah.
And from there, it just, can snowball.
And you probably just see it. Check, 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 check.
I do.
Yeah. Right. So what do you think are the components of a healthy marriage? So let's turn it around the other direction.
I think respect, trust, and commitment. And so I believe that, even if there has been some breach of trust, if the parties can work together with a skilled therapist, for example, and work on rebuilding trust, respect is critical. I mean, once you lose, I remember being in this situation myself, and even before I was a family law attorney, but just like being in the weeds myself, thinking, I remember thinking very clearly, I no longer have trust or respect, it's over. But that's also what the research shows. And then the third thing is commitment. So a lot of times people will be in counseling, they'll suggest that there is, their words will say what needs to be said to attempt to placate the other person into believing that they can be trusted, respected, and that they're committed. And yet oftentimes their actions suggest otherwise. And so it's extremely important to see what people do rather than what they say. And I will send people away who come to me if I don't think that they're ready to get divorced for two reasons. One, it's the right thing. And two, it's the smart thing. One, it's the right thing because I'm not anti-marriage. I don't want to bust up marriages that can be saved. So I have a lengthy list of family therapists and couples counselors that I send them to see whether they can mend things. And it's the smart thing to do because I certainly don't want to take their money and start the divorce process if they're going to change their mind. So that's not how I'm interested in moving forward in the work that I do. But I do think you have to have those things, not just in word, but in deed, for a marriage to flourish, and particularly after there's been a breach of trust.
Yeah, I'm sure you see people and you're like, you see a little glimmer of hope, and you just think, oh, maybe they might come in and say, hey, we're growing apart. And you might say, okay, go see this therapist. It sounds like you're like, maybe if they just took more responsibility for themselves or got rid of resentment, or like where there's things that are treatable, like, right, things that they can actually work on.
What I actually see more often is they'll come in and they'll get back together. And I had this experience in my own life, and I've watched it happen so many times. It's a pattern. So there's something to this where, especially when we have children, I think we really don't most of us don't want our marriages to end. That's not what we signed up for. And so some of us can be almost desperate to want to believe it's going to work. And so I've had many instances where I've observed people in marriage counseling, and the wives in particular sort of put their head in the sand, just hoping for the best. And then the shenanigans continue, and they're back in my office in 2 years.